The following podcast is part of the MindBodySpirit.fm podcast network. Everyone's talking about microdosing, but it's more than a trend. It's a potential gateway to healing, growth, and self-awareness. Now comes the first comprehensive book on the subject, Microdosing for Health, Healing, and Enhanced Performance. James Fadiman and Jordan Gruber delve into the science, history, and real-world experiences behind this powerful practice. From improving health and focus to boosting creativity, they offer practical insights into how microdosing can support a balanced, mindful lifestyle. Find Microdosing wherever books and audiobooks are sold.
This episode is brought to you by Coffee Mate. After watching this season of the HBO's original series, The White Lotus, this is the tropical getaway I needed. One more pina colada, please.
Hey, you're not on mute.
Oh, I thought I was in paradise. Turns out it was my Coffee Mate. Coffee Mate pina colada and Thai-iced coffee flavored creamers. Inspired by the newest season of HBO's original series, The White Lotus. For the love of coffee. Try now.
Wholeness means to me being in a state of joy.
Wholeness means feeling complete, owning my authentic gifts.
Wholeness is really connected. Everything is connected to everything.
Wholeness is where we have access to all parts of ourselves.
The card for today is, can you see that?
Yeah, discovery.
Okay, discovery, yeah. It's like goes in and out because I blurred my background.
Yeah.
But these cards are chakra cards and they kind of have like a little fable that goes with it. So maybe we'll put that in the notes or something like that. But for time's sake, I'll just kind of say what the key ideas are. Have some questions to ask yourself. Like, am I happy in this situation? How is it benefiting me? The healing of predetermined agreements must be addressed. Awareness is healing. And the key ideas are leaving the past behind, a readiness for a new adventure, a willingness to venture into uncharted territory, and a new level of self-care. So it's just a time to discover maybe where you're at or rediscover where you're at and make sure that that's where you want to go.
Yep, I love it. We were having a conversation this morning where I was like, sometimes we show up in a way where we're thinking, well, like I don't want to be that way. I don't want to do that, but like sometimes you have to just know where you're at. And I think that has to do with attachment. Like it's like you got to know where you're at before you can figure out where you want to go. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's what kind of learning your attachment style is a little bit that way. It's like we just got to figure out what is, and then we can change. But a lot of times we're like, no, I don't want to be that, or I don't want to be this. And it's like, okay, but we are. Like,
yep.
That's so true.
I was just talking to my mom and she was like, oh, I'm in this attachment style. And I was like, okay, first of all, like, let's stop that because you can't really take credit for it because you didn't really do it.
Right.
Like it kind of happened to you. It's kind of like, maybe you were talking about like it being like an attachment system, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like you're like, oh, my bad heart is my problem. You're like, no, it just is.
Right.
I think releasing that, accepting that maybe those are some of your patterns or your habits. And then, like you said, looking forward, how am I going to find that those holes in my needs and meet them or ask my partner to them or whatever. So yeah, I love that. I love that reminder.
Yeah. If you think about like the other day, I came up with an example. I was telling someone, maybe it was a client or something, but it's like, yeah, if you think of that attachment system and somebody that's maybe more anxious attached, it's like they were born with their system running high. You know what I mean? It's almost like a car that throttles high, like it's the RPMs are just high, but that's its normal and it's running high and it needs the other person to kind of get it to this healthy stage, but its natural thing is high, where an avoidant is like, it's low. And, one thing that an avoidant is like, as soon as, so like if it's running at like a 1, once it gets to a 3, it feels like it's, that's 200% more than it was used to. And it starts to get angst, it starts to have a problem. And that's what that system is trying to keep, that equality. It's trying to keep its sense of center. But if you're anxiously attached, it's going to be revving higher. And if you're avoidant, it's going to rev lower. And so it's just really understanding, okay, so of course it's accepting where you're at. And then also, because I think once you accept it, then you say, okay, that's my attachment system is like wanting this closeness or doesn't want this closeness. And then we can start to make different decisions rather than just having it run, you know what I mean, and wanting everyone else to kind of, because we hope we want our partner to help us figure that out. And that's partly true. That's not wrong, but it can cause problems when it's like to try and, when we're unable to help ourselves and help the relationship. And I think we talked about that over as we were reading this book, kind of like how that works. Because it's like, is it up to me to like just fix my attachment style? Is it up to my partner to like support my attachment style? And I think it's both. I think it's both. And I'm excited for this episode in the woo-woo version because how you do it, I think is like, this is where the woo-woo tools come in the best because it's not a logical thing. What works for one couple does not work for the other couple. So,
Yeah. Okay,
woo.
so as we're talking about like identifying what we are,
Mhm.
here's a woo question.
Okay.
Do you think that like our ancestors' attachment style could affect our attachment style? Meaning not necessarily in how our parents show up, right? I think our
Mhm.
parents, how they show up, or whoever our caregivers are going to
Mhm.
affect our attachment style. But do you think there can be residual energy that could be kind of put in our DNA that makes your attachment style a certain way?
100%. And they even talk about that in the book because they talk about, I mean, the example they gave, if I remember right, it's funny. I remember parts of the book by like where I was at when I heard it. So
Yes,
the
I
picture
get
that
that.
comes to my mind, I know right where I was when I heard this. But they were talking about like, think about like, so in primitive times, you needed each other a lot more than even now just to survive. Like what was that show? Did you ever see the show like The Croods? Like, and they're
Yeah,
just
that exactly thing came to my mind. Yes,
yeah,
like
and
you
they're
have to live
like
in that.
yeah, they're like, and the families are being like obliterated. Like they had to all work together to just survive the day. And so I could, so like you would be anxiously attached. Those people would all be very anxiously attached together because I need you or I'm gonna die. Like I don't know how much more anxiously attached you could get than that. But they said on the other hand, like imagine that one of those people did lose all of their family, right? And they were left alone. The one way for them to survive would be to shut down the attachment system and become avoidant. You know what I mean? And so the idea that they were giving is yes, it very much does. That's really a big factor is that it can move down through the generations. And whether you look at it energetically or whether you look at it even, you know, um, how people show up, like, if they act this way because they learned it from their parents and whatever, and they learned it from their grandparents, whatever you want to call it, either way, I think it does have a huge impact. I would guess that your attachment system is at least 2 generations deep, I would think.
Yeah.
Unless there was some big, huge thing, like maybe, if you had a mom that was, that got like an illness when you were little and couldn't function, that might change, that might not be a couple generations deep, where you're not getting your attachment system built, like regulated. So it's building. And we'll talk about this in a little bit, but I mean, it's kind of woo, but it's not like for the first couple of years of your life, your nervous system is your primary caregiver's nervous system. Like it's developing in co-regulation with this caretaker. So if they're in a lot of stress, then that's what you're developing in. So it's like, that's why I say like, like whether you're anxious or avoidant, you're running high or running low, like that's your norm. It sits there because that's the attachment you were with. And I think it's easy to do because different people have different temperaments. So maybe two people could be born from the same mother, but one is more sensitive, one needs more attention, one needs more, so so they might not, they might have more of an anxious attachment style, and then the person might not, even though they had the same parent, because they're individuals and have different needs and temperaments and things like that. And
I
that's
like that temperament idea into it because yeah, I was thinking about my sister and I, we were Irish twins, so we were raised, I mean, all my life I knew her. I don't know how to say this, but we were raised so closely together.
right.
Like a lot of our experiences are the same, but yeah, we show up very differently in our relationships and even in friendships, I can see it so differently. And yeah, I think the circumstances were the same,
Right.
but our temperaments were very, very
Very
different.
different. And I can't remember what book it was in or where I saw it, but one of the things when they were some of the people that stopped and said maybe people are highly sensitive, right? Like One of the things they did was they would take an alcohol swab or like a cotton ball and just dip it in alcohol, and then they would just put it by a baby, and and there would be like no reaction to crying.
Huh.
And it was like, so they were like, there is a sensitivity difference between kids. People are differently, have different sensitivities. And, whether you want to get into whether that's, genetic, whether that's environmental, whether, it's like you can go down that road. But I feel like if we are all going to be different, we are going to all show up in very different ways. And I think we try to be the same and we're not, and that's why I think like learning your attachment style, yes, we're going to categorize you into these 4 areas, but really that's just the first step, in understanding who you are and how you work and what you do. Don't get yourself stuck in one of those boxes. Use it as a tool to in your life, not a prescription, not a label.
And take that shame out of it, because that will just make it worse, I think.
It does.
Will allow you, it just kind of shuts me down when I feel that way.
It
Because it feels
does.
impossible to break out of it. And it's like, no, 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 that's not what we're doing here.
Right, right, right. And then the second thing you want to do, like, what caused this? What caused this? And it's like, maybe that's important. But if we understand where we are, then we can move forward. And sometimes moving forward, yeah, we might bring up stuff from the past, but we're still moving forward rather than like, why did this happen to me? It's kind of just like we have a mixed bag of experiences, and like your sister, you might have a memory that was difficult. She was there. It didn't, she has no memory of it, right? People were just different. We're so different. And I think that's why I like the idea of woo-woo or energy, because that's the only way I can describe it. If somebody's high energy, they're going to see something different than if they're low energy. Like that experience is going to just itself is going to show up differently. And it could be because you're tired. It could be because who knows, but it's like energetic, that energy in our bodies is moving and changing all the time. And it does affect how we show up and how we like view what's happening, right? That can change everything. And if you have that view, then look, I can work on my energy and then I can show up differently, and then I can be aware once I start working with that system and know how to build my energy system, then I have a little bit more, I don't know if the word is control, but control or ability to show up the way I want rather than in a responsive way, just.
Yeah. That's really interesting, because I was thinking about like you said, this is wanting us to move forward.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes we do want to like pick those pieces apart of the past of like, okay, well, that happened to make me this way, or that happened.
Mhm.
And I was thinking about when we went to that soul salon with Lisa Campion, and she told me about a past life that I had, and it was an abusive relationship.
Mhm.
And so I've looked at some of the patterns that in my life that I kind of show up a little bit like that. And so that's woo, right? I can't prove that to anybody. Like I don't
Right.
really have her name or any
Right.
to believe that, but the feelings
Mhm.
that I felt, or some of those emotions, or however I want to describe it, some of those
Right.
little things like are showing up. And so I can't figure that out. I can't know all the answers, but I can start here
Mhm.
instead of like having to go back. I don't know. Is that a
Right.
human idea? Is that a female thing? I don't really know. But that idea of like wanting to dissect all the
Mhm.
past and figure it out, how it worked together to bring us here. But let's just use this as a starting point and then move forward from here.
Yeah, right. And like I say, if things come up from the past because it authentically does, great. But to force it, to try and create an equation out of it or make sense of it, sometimes that becomes even more damaging than the thing itself.
Well, and you're not moving forward at
Right.
all.
It can
There's
get
no
you
healing
stuck.
that can come from that. Like you think there could be.
Right.
It's almost like putting too much salt in a recipe. There's really no coming back from that. And you could go back and try and do everything you can,
Right.
but sometimes you just need to move forward.
Yeah, and it's different than burying it. It's not like you're not looking at the past, but it's
No.
just you got to catch yourself. Like only when it's like, okay, I got to catch myself trying to, putting a lot of energy or losing a lot of energy in trying to figure this out instead of just accepting where we're at. So,
Yeah.
yeah, but when it comes to the wisdom of attached, the woo-woo wisdom of attached, there's a few things that show up. And one is this idea, which again, we laughed about last time. It's like, a lot of this woo-woo stuff isn't that woo-woo anymore.
Oh,
It's just normal. But They talk a lot about how there is an emotional energy that flows between partners. Um, and kind of think of it as a magnet, as the attachment, as it attracts or it repels. It's like um, an anxious attached person's going to have a lot of attraction. They're going to be like that heavy magnet that just pulls whatever they can to it, and the avoidance going to be more of that repel. It's like stay away, but both of them are number one. Both of those, what they call insecure attachments, are trying to find security. That's the whole point. They're trying to find that security. They're not trying to control you. They're not trying to stop you from having your life. They're trying to regulate this relationship, being comfortable in a relationship inside their bodies. Like it's really, really a biological type thing.
Yeah.
I think we shame ourselves or try to figure out what's wrong with me when instead of we just follow the body. The body is the communicator. Like this is just what is happening, right? So there is that energy that happens between anybody, but really it gets really intense in a love relationship. That's just, I don't think anybody would deny that.
No, I like that about, and it's almost like you need to know what that is so that you know to be a little bit more proactive. I think showing up is like in therapy last night. We were talking about how I tend to, if I sense something's wrong, I tend to retreat and pull back. And he said, well, so now you know that about yourself. So what could you do? And I was like, well, maybe next time we have like that talk, I'm going to ask Steve to sit by me for 5 minutes. And he was like, yes, that's exactly right. Like you're calming your attachment system down by like that closeness, just sitting there. You don't have to even do anything. But if that works for you, then that's that magnet coming back to homeostasis,
Right.
not feeling that uncomfortableness of it either coming too fast or too far apart.
Right, right. And if you talk about one of the things in the book is this idea, there's another book that's really potent about it, and I have a quote from there, but it talks about we are healing. These attachment relationships do have the capability of doing a lot of healing. That's why, and so I love the quote from Harville Hendrix. This is in the book, Getting the Love You Want. He says, we are born in relationship, we are wounded in relationship, and we can be healed in relationship. That's one of my favorite quotes ever because I think in a place in a world where we're very like self-motivated and I can do it myself and independent and we want to be strong, but biologically that's not the way it is. In fact, I'm going to read you a quote from the book attached, and it says, numerous studies show that once we become attached to someone, the two of us form one physiological unit. Our partner regulates our blood pressure, our heart rate, our breathing, and the levels of hormones in our blood. We are no longer separate entities. The emphasis on differentiation that is held by most of today's popular psychology approaches to adult relationships does not hold water from a biological perspective. Dependency is fact. It's not a choice or a preference. But we're going to have different levels of that dependency. And that's what the attachment system is. So like, an avoidant isn't going to have much of that. Their dependency is going to be a lower level, and an anxious is going to be a higher level, but it's still a dependent. It's still dependent because an avoidant attachment style person isn't happy alone. They're not happy alone. So it's just understanding this is true. Like that's the number one thing to get out of this book is that we are biologically connected and we depend on each other. And
so let me say this then. A shameless plug, but to find wholeness, you have to be in a relationship.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Right? I mean, there is your wholeness of yourself, but if you want to have, they're saying that you have to be in a relationship. Is that what they're saying? You have to be, or?
Well, there's what comes to my mind when you say that is, okay, you're going to talk about someone that's very, very wounded and traumatized, like they're going to be lucky enough to have a relationship with like a pet. You know what I mean?
We shouldn't laugh. That's not fair.
I know, but like, sadly, like if they can get in a relationship with a pet and have some of that, because what you're doing is you're relying on somebody else for your safety, which is a human, like that's just the truth. We just don't live alone. I mean, we talked about it last time, but like the worst punishment you could give a human being is solitary confinement. That's considered the worst punishment there is. And so there's a few people, not a ton, but there's a few people who, because of all their wounds and things like that, that solitary confinement is there. So I'm thinking of um what's that book? Oliphant, Eleanor Oliphant.
Completely
Right.
fine.
Yeah, like she was one where, like her, it was so much more than an avoidant, really traumatized. I mean, I don't want to ruin the book, but highly, highly traumatized. And so her system, the system was like, okay, here's how we keep people at bay. We create the relationship we want versus the reality, like a fantasy. We fantasize a relationship rather than what's really, really there. But in the end, even in that book, I mean, so her safety, let me finish my first sentence. Her safety, she wasn't one to just like, hey, go get a relationship and it'll feel better. No, that was going to be traumatizing to her from what she's been to. But her therapist helped her, kind of after her healing happened, that's the whole thing is she could begin to have relationships, and then you get out of that. So like if it feels like terrifying to be in a relationship as part of your wholeness, um, I feel ya. Like there's some that didn't come from nothing. That's not just a preference. That's not so much of just, yeah. And so a lot of times, people, like I know some people in therapy, I mean, they're working toward this pet relationship, honestly, to start to build that because the humans we just are built that way to have relationship. We just really are. And you can have a relationship with a friend. You can have a relationship it doesn't have to be a love relationship. But I do think that in order to grow, you need relationship. In fact, we'll talk about that. Like relationships, they, so why can we be healed in relationship? Why? Because number one, they highlight our wounds. There's nothing more potent than being in a relationship. And that just seems like there's the magic in the universe that they're going to bring up your stuff, right? Um,
Hmm.
our earliest attachments, usually with our caregivers, they kind of set the stage, right, of how we relate to others. And they give us what I loved called the like emotional blueprints, like for how relationship works, right? And then we have a new relationship, and those old wounds often surface because like maybe that blueprint isn't the greatest blueprint, maybe it wasn't helpful for us. And so it's going to be highlighted in this our love relationships or maybe not always love. Like I say, you can have attachment, I think, with friends
You
and
can too.
and your children, you're going to have attachments where you don't want to live off of, but you don't want to, regulate off of your kids.
Depends on. Well, but like we are regulating our kids.
Right,
They're not regulating us, or at
right,
least I hope
right,
that's
right,
the
right,
hope.
right, 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 right. Um, so like they talked about when those old suit it's funny that you said that because when it says when you're feeling anxious when a partner pulls away, that might stem from some kind of abandonment you had at some point, or like we talked about, or those feelings of abandonment that got passed down. If you're struggling to trust, maybe it was because you had a need that was left unmet. You know what I mean? Like it's not just some nonsense you make up. It's like we develop these things throughout our lives or passed down, similar. But like I say, it almost is like whether it comes in the system or whether we act the same way, I feel like they would both work together that way.
Hmm.
They will, but the relationship, we do co co-regulate, that's the word, co-regulate our nervous system in a relationship. And this is rooted in the polyvagal theory, which is talks about how our nervous system responds to threat, So the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight, and the dorsal, this is big words, but the dorsal vagal system, which is shut down and freeze. So there's two systems. One's fight, flight, the other one's shut down, freeze. And when one of those usually gets engaged when we're feeling threatened. And that threat can even be almost in our minds, right? It doesn't necessarily need to be totally overt. It's like the system will engage. And so it
Well,
sounds
it's just
like,
like, yeah, your heart rate will go up, and you're like, I'm not gonna grab a knife or anything like
right.
that, but I'm feeling it.
Yeah, yeah. Or like you were saying, you're like, yeah, I pull back. So that one system, the shut down system, the
dorsal or something like
Yeah,
that.
that one just happens to get activated. Like it's not like you said, "Hey, let's do that activation." Like it does it all by itself. Like
Hey,
and
everybody, let's shut down for a little
yeah,
bit.
like, "Hey, here we go. Let me decide." It's an automatic system to keep you, yeah, the dorsal vagal system is the shutdown freeze. And when you're dysregulated, the presence of a calm, attuned person can actually activate that ventral vagal system, signaling to your brain that you're safe. Um, and I think that's what you talked about in your thing. So those nonverbal cues, like your facial expressions. So one little funny thing is I remember, it's one of those things my mom would say, and then you don't realize till how much later how much that was important. But I remember, I was the youngest, and so I had nieces and nephews starting to come around by the time I was 10. So I was pretty young, changing diapers. And I remember her telling me, she's like, she was just like, "Hey, when you're changing their diaper, try to not have a gross look on your face because that could affect them." And I never thought about that before, but it's true. You're just like, "Oh my gosh, this is disgusting." Like they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm disgusting." Who knows how those kind of beliefs get done. And I mean, trust me, I wanted to have the disgusting look on my face, but I was that practice of like trying not to because she said, she was like, "I don't want them to ever feel like that they're gross and yucky because it's a natural bodily function, and that's what we're here to do, and that's what they're there to do. And so let's just be careful with that." And I've never heard that anywhere, but I feel like, boy, that was genius, like
Really is.
when you wake up in the morning and you go into the room and you're just like so tired, like they're regulating off of your response. And even though you have this great excuse, that doesn't help them at all. Do you know what I mean? Just because their diaper's super stinky, they can't do anything about it, but they're going to get the energetics of that could really, um, you know, start to program their inner algorithm, right? Their little inner algorithm. So think about facial expressions, tone of voice. When you slow down, if you start to slow down the way you talk in a conversation when things are heated, everything just kind of calms down.
Mhm.
You can still say the same thing, just say it slower. And it'll be a big deal. That body language, so turning towards instead of like pulling away, all of those things are the woo-woo energetic stuff that's happening between you two that is really speaking really loud in the relationship. Even if you don't mean it, you know what I mean? And maybe you're even in your protector, but those show up. And even your breathing, um, your breathing. I know in our therapist, she's always talking to us about, breathing deep in your belly. And she says, I feel like we're as women, so self-conscious of our belly that we don't breathe like big, and she says, I feel like that does us a disservice because we've kind of had generations after generation of being so body conscious that we're breathing higher up in our chest and than we are. It should be deep, deep down, because when you go deep down, that signals the brain, that brings on that calming, nervous system chemicals or system that says we're fine.
Hmm.
That deep breath, I mean, that's what it's looking for. I think it was in The Big Leap, he said the difference between fear and excitement is the breath. Like we talked about
Right.
that before. It's like, it's true. Like, if you're excited, you're like, yeah, let's go. You're excited. If you're scared or you're worried, fearful, like you're hold your breath. So it's not always breathing in. It's not always breathing too fast. It's also holding your breath. It's really, really, it sends messages to the brain, and then the nervous system's like, red alert, red alert.
Well, yeah, and from a biological standpoint, even, you might not know you're doing it, but if you're
Right.
getting a lack of oxygen, like stuff stops working. So,
Hmm.
yeah, we need to keep all of the body systems going so that hopefully we can get our nervous system
Right.
right. Because if the other stuff's wonky, all of it's wonky.
Right. Right. And yeah, that's totally true. And in some examples I found of like this, how we can co-regulate in a love relationship. Most of these are in romantic. Well, these are different ones. In romantic relationships, holding hands or cuddling can calm the other person. And I think about that, like I feel like sometimes even when we had difficult times in our marriage, like this sounds so dumb, but it's like, that was kind of a power play. It was like, I'm not going to hold your hand because I'm mad at you, kind of a thing. But like if I would have looked at it like, actually, if we want to get to a better place, that's that's the road to go do it. Where it's like, this is going to be better for me and for them. It's not like a power play. It really is a regulation thing to hold hands or to cuddle during
Yeah,
those stressful moments.
we have friends that even if they're in a fight, they have to cuddle to go to sleep. And
Mm,
so, I've always kind of laughed at that, but now hearing that, I'm like, actually, that's really smart.
yeah,
Like that they're doing that because I'm sure in the morning the picture looks a lot different.
right. 100%. Like, think of these phrases too. Like, I think, and, of course, we've had difficulties in our relationships. We've been angry. Me and my husband have been angry at each other. And just think of what if you use these phrases like, hey, I'm here with you, or you're safe. Let's figure this out together. Instead of like, will you?
Yeah,
Not
everybody wants to hear that. Yeah.
right. That doesn't help. But it's like, I'm here. Let's figure this out. And you think about as a team that we're going to co-regulate together. That's what our goal is here. That's the real goal, and it's not about I'm doing too much, I'm doing more than you. It's like the goal is regulation because when you're regulated, the problems aren't as big as they are when you're dysregulated. It's just the truth. And yeah, if it's one person like showing up all the time, that's something, difficult. But also, at least for me, I just look back and I think if I kind of knew these things early on, if, I wish I would have been told these before I even got married. It's like, you two are one and you're wanting him. I'm using behaviors maybe to get him to help me co-regulate, but I'm not, or just regulate, but I'm not realizing that really for me to regulate, he needs to regulate too. We both need to move to regulate, to be regulated. I can't have him be okay and then I'm okay, which is easy to do as a wife, right? That comes up a lot. It's like when he's okay, I'm okay. Or like that saying that's so dumb when mom's not happy, no one's happy. That's a lot to
Right.
put on the mom. I just have to say.
It is. It's unfair. But I think we're so good at it as women. And maybe
It's true.
I don't know, not that I want to put a sex on it, I guess all the time, but we're better at seeing the emotions or feeling the emotions or whatever.
Hmm.
Like there's times when I'll say like, oh, so and so is feeling this way. My husband's completely like oblivious. I'm like,
Yeah.
how did you do that?
Hmm.
And maybe it varies from person to person,
Yeah.
but
But it is a feminine quality. And some, men have feminine qualities too. So that one might be attuned in a man, but it's still a feminine quality. I think you're just exactly right. So that's romantic relationship. So in friendships, you can sit quietly with a friend who's upset and offer non-judgment presence. And I think this is really important to match your energy with theirs. So if they're like really upset, first you're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, I get it. Yeah, totally, totally." And then you're going to start calming your voice maybe a little bit and like, is there, I'm here with you. Again, you can use that like, what do you need? And you're just thinking them as this nervous system that you're calming down. And all of it again, this is why it's woo-woo. It's energetic. It's not it's not even holding the hand isn't the thing. It's the energy between you that does the work, right? It's the woo woo. It's the stuff that's unseen that really
and I
does
think
the work.
yeah, and I think it's even reading the energy of the room because we don't have a little sign on our forehead that's like,
Right.
I'm pissed right now, or I am,
Yeah.
And so it's like feeling their energy. And
Hmm.
that's not something that they even have to say all the time. You're like, okay, I get it. Let's see where you're at. And
Yep. Totally. I
yeah.
remember, so my husband, he was um how do we say it? There's so many different ways to say it, but under a lot of emotional threat, let's say, as a child. And so, reading the room became a hyper vigilant type thing. And it was more about making sure I'm safe than it was even engaging in the relationship, right? It was like more about how is this going to affect me kind of a
Protection.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
protection. And I remember when he read the book, he loves the book, The Golden Compass. Have you ever read that book or seen the movie of the book at all?
No.
So in that book, it's like fantasy, but they have what they call, what do they call it? It has like a name. Their demon. It's called a demon, which is funny because it's not a bad thing, but it's like their demon is this, they have this animal that's attached to them that like shows all their emotions. So like they don't like it's like they if they can hide their emotions fine, but their little demon guy is going to show their emotion. They can't not show their emotion. And he was like, that'd be so great. Like to him, he was like, that would be awesome. Because for him, it was like, first of all, this guy gets to hold all the emotions. And second of all, then I could read the room so much better because they're like showing big time their emphasis on what their emotions are. And we just kind of laughed at that. And then years later, we were like, oh, right, that was that was another sign.
But I love that because Katie Hendricks even talked about being honest with people about like, hey, I'm feeling really upset right now. And that's not saying I need you to fix it.
Right.
That's just being honest. And so he's onto something. Like
Yeah.
I think that there is a benefit when you know how people are feeling, but we're not really brave enough to do that. A lot of
Yeah.
us aren't brave to
Well,
do
and
that.
we were talking about this morning because, like we've had to get very, I was thinking we were talking about it a little bit because I said, I think other people will be like, I can't believe you said that, because like he'll say like, oh man, you are just my enemy today, and it's like, and it doesn't bother me because we've gone through this whole trip to get to this place. Don't get me wrong, but it's like to me, what he said this morning, he's like, because I understand what's going on there, the fact that I'm actually not the thing, I'm actually not the enemy. His feelings are what's going on, you know. And so then he can say that to me, and then I'm just like, oh man, what's going on? And I don't take any ownership of it. And he also doesn't, he's not trying to get me to do anything. It's like telling me the truth. It's so much nicer than before when he was feeling this way, and inside his mind he's like, I don't know, maybe she did this, and and like he even said, he's like, a lot of times my brain could come up with a reason. It was like, I think you waited 2 seconds longer to answer me than, you know what I mean, like, well, you didn't answer me
Right.
right away. Like it will hurt, his brain will come up with a reason. But he's like, that was the biggest moment of therapy, was when it was like, that's not necessarily true. And again, we're talking about the system doesn't work that way. The system doesn't actually look at presentness and say, hey, that's wrong. If it was, we show up and fix that. When we're just kind of like, like, what's wrong? And we don't have an actual story to it and we're kind of looking for it. That's one of the reasons why, how we can know it's like somewhere from the past. It's something that showed up. And it's not about saying it's not invalid. It's just like really feeling that feeling and being like, oh my gosh, I am just feeling whatever it is. And that's, for him, it was just like, like, I feel like you're me, like you're out to get me, is like how he'll think about it. And I didn't come along, but he knows that's him. He knows that's his physiology and not necessarily what's happening out in the world. And it's been huge to tell that kind of truth. It's like, oh, good. Because normally I start to feel it, right? Like start to act on, walk on eggshells and like, hi, are you okay? Yeah. And he says yes because he doesn't have an answer, and then I'm like, are you sure? And then I become this needy person because I'm like, are you sure you're okay? And it's like, because me, I feel like he might as well, I don't know what's going on, but the energy is saying something's not okay. And now it's nice to just be like, oh, that's what's going on. Okay. And like, do you need anything? No. Or sometimes he'll like, I could use this hug or whatever. And it's like, great, and it's not about making the feeling go away. It's just addressing the feeling. What do you need?
Yeah.
What do you need? And sometimes it's like, I wish there was something that would take it away, but it's not. And we just have to ride the wave. I do that too, not just him. I don't want to act like it's just him, but like, and getting in touch with that little bit of intuition is how you can know the difference. You've got to have that access to that piece of yourself that can tell you whether it's something that needs to be addressed or not. Like there's no hard, fast rule. It's just that intuitive part.
And it's a practice, we say that a lot, is a practice, but it is something where you have to first identify, right? That, oh,
Mhm.
this is making me upset. Because I think we just jump
Yep.
so far down the line that, oh, then now we're upset. We didn't even see it coming.
Right.
Start to identify that it's coming, and then you can label it,
Mhm.
and then you can start to ask for help or however you need to show up. But yeah,
Yeah. And
that
go
that's
ahead.
adulting. That's
It's
adulting.
adulting. But I loved how Katie Hendricks said she's like, start in the body, because we want to come up with the story, but it's like, I'm feeling really anxious in my chest
Mm.
or my shoulder is tight. Like if you go to the body, then it's a little less like there's less need to make it valid. You know what I mean? Like it's like you can't, and she said that. She's like, nobody's going to say, no, your stomach's not tight. It's like, yeah, that my stomach's really tight and it's making me like I'm feeling a little anxious or whatever it is. I think that's um, I think we shut off so much. I've talked about this before, shut off from our body so much that we don't use them as the tool that we really could. Like, they're really good tools. Our body is like one of our best tools for what's going on, in our lives. But back to like, so in parenting, if your child, this is for young, if your child's throwing tantrum, remain calm and offer soothing words rather than yelling them to settle down. Like, this is something I did a class once a few years ago. I need to kind of pull it up again and maybe do it again, but it was like how to soothe your tantrum child, because it feels like, in the middle of a store and your child's having a tantrum. I mean, that's a lot of physiology going on in the body of the mom. It's too rough to say don't follow. Like, that's a lot of its physiology that you feel like you have to address. But with practice, you can be like, okay, my body thinks everybody's stressing out. My body is like worried, but this is, and so sometimes we like take it out on the kid because it's our own physiology that we're trying to actually calm down, which is why they get wound up more and more and more, because it's like, I'm not going to calm you down. I'm not going to make you feel like it's not my stuff. And then you end up like, even like whether you spank him or whether you yell him or whether you grab your arm, it's all like to offload your own physiology sometimes. And to really understand in those situations, to really get really, really clear and really, really attuned to your own body, is the way to make those tantrums go away the fastest. Like, oh my gosh, I hate this. Like, oh my gosh, I think everybody's seeing, but it's being more aware of it. It's this, you're not just pushing the feelings aside, but you're just like, I do not like this. And you're just telling the truth about it rather than trying to shut it all down or trying to make him stop. Because you've been there when a kid's having a fit or like a tantrum, like you're like, oh, poor mom. Like, you're not judging the kid. You're not necessarily judging the mom. It's like, I've been there, it's like you've been there.
I know, and you just have so much pity. And there's a part of me that wishes I was like 80 years old, because it would feel a little bit better for an 80-year-old grandma to come up and be like, give the mom a hug and give the kid a sucker and just like diffuse the
Right.
situation. I just see that so many times and I'm not brave enough to do it, but it's like everyone just needs a hug.
Hmm. Right. It's like, mom, you got this. We're all just cheering for you. We're all just, we get it, but her physiology is not going to say that. It's not. It's going to be
No.
like a panic. It's hard. Um,
Well, when I was a preschool teacher, we had, and maybe this isn't the best. There's probably different ways, but where physical touch isn't always available when
mhm.
you're here. But the theory at that time was not to do a timeout, but to do a power chair.
Mm,
And so it was, you get to go and get work on your power to like make a better choice, and maybe just like regulate your nervous system over there. You can have your minute. And I probably didn't do the best job of like, I would set a timer and I would go back and be like, hey, are you ready to come back?
mhm.
Whatever to what we were doing. And like there may be better ways to do it, but at least it wasn't like I'm alienating you because you were bad.
Right.
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 I think it was a step forward in the right
I
direction.
think it was a step forward. I mean, yeah, we did time out and it was like, now that I look at it, I'm like, so you just got in trouble, which is like getting caught, like that humiliation or getting in trouble is like jarring to the system. And you're like, and then we make you want to sit there and be quiet, which inside of your body is just, like it's running a million miles an hour and we're making you sit there and be quiet. It's like, so the only way to get through that is to cut off, right? It's to shut down. It's to like dissociate, because it's like, when you're driving in a car and you like almost get in a car accident. You're like,
Yeah.
like it, like tell that person to just calm down. What's your problem? It's like, we almost got in a car accident. Like, my system had a reaction, people. That's what's going on. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, lastly, as far as co-regulating, this is a lot of thing, but I felt like this was really the important part of the book in the woo-woo, was that like this is what we're trying to do in relationship is be regulated together. So in a therapy session, therapists can model co-regulation by maintaining calm and grounded presence. And even when there's intense emotions, a therapist, we're and different things that I've been trained in, not as a therapist, but it's like, to really, really pay attention to my own feelings, um, and to recognize that, oh, that's coming up. And sometimes even in my IFS training, it was like, you might have to say, you know what, my own nervous system's kind of getting rounded up. Can I just be here for a minute and take a breath? Because we just react. Sometimes we react out of that
We're human.
place. We're human, right? And we're just not taught to monitor. But if you really do, it's not too hard to monitor yourself and then advocate for yourself. Like, okay, I'm going to need a minute, or like, oh, wow, your stuff's, popping up into my stuff. Let me just get back to, get myself led in IFS. It's like, let me just get back to yourself. And no one else can tell me when I'm there. I have to know it within myself, right? There's no magic button that turns on and says, you're ready, you're regulated.
But I also think that's part of the modeling is because they're going to run into situations where maybe somebody's coming to them, like say their manager at a store, and they're going to have to take that moment and say like, okay, just a minute. I needed to have just a second. Like what an amazing tool to give somebody in that situation of like, yes, holding space for someone, but also when you get agitated, allowing yourself to have that space. I think that's amazing.
Yeah. It's like so simple, but like huge. It can just make a huge difference, a huge difference. So, yeah, the ways that, to me, like we might have a different attachment styles, but really in a relationship, it is getting to where we are co-regulated. Like that's the goal. Like that's the simple goal that we're trying to get to. And an anxious attachment style and a avoidant attachment style, they have different ways of going about it. And it's about coming together and how do we co-regulate, how do we get to this regulated space? And everybody dysregulates. Like you can be a securely attached person and dysregulate. Like that is a human being, like you say, that's being a human being. But
Lowe's knows that free is just better. That's why MyLowe's Rewards is free to join. As a member, you earn points towards MyLowe's money on eligible purchases, get exclusive free gifts, and earn free shipping at Silver Key status, all on top of weekly member-only deals. Don't wait. Join MyLowe's Rewards for free today and start saving more. Lowe's, we help, you save. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. From your morning podcast to your afternoon playlist, State Farm knows you personalize your entire day, and that's why State Farm helps you personalize your insurance with the State Farm Personal Price Plan. It offers coverage options that help protect what you care about most at an affordable price just for you. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices vary by state. Options selected by customer. Availability and eligibility may vary.
So good, so good, so good.
Great brands, great prices. Everyone's got a reason to rack.
Because they have framed jeans.
Nike? Yes.
Just so many good brands.
Vince, Kurt Geiger London, Rag & Bone, and more are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. You never know what you'll find, but you know it's going to be so good. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
Just for fun, I asked ChatGPT, what are some energy healing or woo-woo tactics I can use to move my attachment style into a more secure type? So this is what I asked. And the answer was, I loved it, said, great question.
I noticed that. Fully validated you.
Yeah. Combining energy healing and woo-woo. Love that term. Approaches with attachment work can be super powerful for shifting old patterns into more secure, balanced ones. And here are some ideas. So this is the ideas that it gave me, which I was just like, I would come up with this list on my own. I might add to it over a 2 or 3 week period of time, but wow, thank you, ChatGPT. It did the work for me. But so one is EFT, emotional tapping, emotional freedom technique is what EFT or tapping. And how it helps is tapping on these specific meridian points while speaking affirmations can help you release emotional blockages tied to insecure attachment styles. And I don't know if you've ever done tapping. We have a library, a whole bunch of tapping on the Wholeness Network library, but try it. Like try a tapping session and just see. I mean, one of the things about EFT that's really important is you should start out with like, where am I at? Okay, I'm feeling like a 10. Okay, let's do this tapping. And then how do you feel? And just by knowing that you're like, oh, actually I'm down. Maybe I'm a 7, maybe I'm a 4, but just to see that we've shifted a little bit is really powerful. So try it. If you've never tried tapping, I know it sounds strange. We also have IRT, which is what does it stand for? I can't remember what it stands for. IRT, rapid, like rapid eye technology or something like it's rapid eye. It's like the rapid eye technology. That's another one. Like you're like, why does that work? But like, try it and see. If you go into the app and all of the parts that are like, they have a whole support system for anxiety, for depression, for even like self-harm, for addiction, for grief, for relationships, for that feeling of frenzy. Like there's a tapping and a rapid eye technology for every one of those. And just try it and see. It's free in the app. Those parts are free in the app. And you do it by, so when you're doing tapping, you kind of focus on an area and so in fact, in our social media, I created a post where it gives you a script for tapping and it tells you exactly where to tap and what to say. And
awesome.
Just try it. And one of the most, when I first learned tapping, one of the most freeing things is like the first thing that you always say is, even though I'm whatever, even though I'm feeling anxious, even though, like, even with weight loss, even though I weigh more than I should or want to, I deeply love and connect, and I deeply love and accept myself. Like to say that to yourself in that moment with whatever you're feeling, even though I feel whatever or am whatever or want whatever, I deeply love and accept myself. Like that alone is really powerful. And
I
that's
should
how you
probably
start.
write that on my I should probably write that on my mirror.
Yeah.
No, today is today.
Right.
I love it.
Yeah, it's really helpful. Like that's what tapping is really magical for that. Another thing that ChatGPT said that we could do to move towards a more secure attachment is cord cutting meditations.
Oh yeah.
And it says how it helps is it releases these old attachment wounds or unhealthy ties in a relationship. And sometimes like we don't necessarily know, but we're just going to have the intention that we're going to release some of these patterns. And over time, we build new pathways in our brain that believes it, right? Like it believes it. So whether you want it, I mean, I think it can happen woo-woo way, but if you're not into woo-woo, this is how you can say it, right? But what it says is to visualize an energetic cord connecting to you or a person, connecting you to a person or a memory. And then picture yourself cutting it with golden scissors, sending energy healing back to yourself and the other party. Finish by imagining yourself glowing with light. I remember once there was this lady, was this woman, she was a friend, but then not a friend. And like, she was just on my mind all the time. And I was like, and I called up my friend. I'm like, can you help me with this? Because I can tell that like, this just needs to go away. And she kind of just walked me through this cord cutting. And it was like, we kind of cut the cord and then like, I could picture taking hers and putting it in the ground and a bunch of flowers like grew where that grew in. And it felt so good to me. And it was, she really, that's one of those glad times, those magical times where it just was done. Like it was like, she was just like, it was just like more of a distant memory than active in my system. And so those can really work.
What I liked in Darlene Green's In Service to Love is she does the I think we might have even done it for Intention Setting Sunday, but it was a hot air balloon and all the chords and all the beliefs that were there. And I want her to put that in the library. I'm going to ask her because I actually read it to myself so that I could have a meditation while I was doing it.
Yeah.
And I just love the idea of like when you can cut those, then like you rise above and you can just see everything and it just becomes clear. And yeah, I think that there's really a lot of magic or woo to doing those kind of things because I think there are things that bind us down.
Yeah.
And then cutting those off is so freeing. It feels so good.
It is. And again, and like you say, it's like it's woo-woo because it's not like you can take a test and it's gone. You know what I mean? It's like, but it feels totally different. It just feels completely different. And feelings matter. Okay, the next thing that it's offered was a heart chakra healing, heart chakra. So the heart chakra governs love, compassion, and connection. And balancing it can open you up to a more secure relationship. And what's interesting is the heart chakra is in the middle of the 7 main chakras. So you've got all the physical ones below that are like survival, relationship, power, individual power. And then you've got like kind of this energetic power, this like intuition and this connection to this divinity. And that heart once it's balanced, it just opens, like it just really is a gateway to like helping out with the other ones. Because that's the thing is sometimes when we're having a disagreement with a loved one, we're looking for that security. That's why these are called a secure attachment. Like you're looking for the security, which is very much a root chakra type energy. And that, and just to have compassion about. The heart knows that. The heart can see it through this compassionate lens. It's like, darling, you're needing some support. And so if you can do that heart chakra meditation, it will show you, it will help you see things on a different level, whether it's for yourself or the other person. And
Well, I haven't thought about it that way. Like it kind of tries to balance those out. That's
yeah,
cool.
it's like the bridge. It's like the bridge. So it also says to use rose quartz or green aventurine crystals. Lie down with one or more over your heart and visualize green light expanding from your chest, softening and releasing any blocks. So there's another way that you can, just make yourself feel a little better when you're not doing okay. Open that heart chakra.
And that's fast. You could do that.
Oh
in a
yeah.
couple.
That's what's so
awesome.
great about energy work is it's quick. Like it's quick. And it's like, yeah, do you feel better? Okay, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
The other thing is inner child work, and it helps because a lot of times our attachment systems do stem from kind of these things. And again, we don't know any difference. That's what's hard. Is like I don't know unless you've been physically abused, you might know that's wrong. But other things, they're kind of obscure. It's like I didn't know. Like even in your case, having a little sister so close, like dang, if I was a parent to those two, that older one would grow up a little faster than because you needed him to, because it's like, I've got to, that's just, it's not like it's a fault, but it's a reality of life. We all just have those different areas. And so there was maybe some unmet needs because of time and two hands, right? That's it. So they said, visualize your younger self, imagine holding them, telling them that they're safe, loved, and worthy, and still send healing energy or light or warmth to them. Just taking those when you're feeling that dysregulated or that, insecure attachment style show up. Because even secure people have moments of insecure attachments. Like it's a system, right? It's like even a very healthy person is going to have a nervous system. Their nervous system is going to get engaged. Like it's just the way that it is.
Right.
Energy clearing helps clear away any stagnant or heavy energies tied to any insecure patterns. So you can use sage, Palo Santo, or sound bowls to clear the energy field. Set an intention like I release old beliefs and open myself to love and security. And there's I think I talked about it in the episode with Christine. I think it's coming out in March, but it's like you've got to make sure that you're in such a place that even you can receive it. Because sometimes we're so upset that we're like, banging on the music thing. We're like, make me feel better, make me feel better. You know what I mean? And I mean, and again, we need some compassion for that. Because like, oh wow, we're really needing something, and we want something to come take it away. And we kind of have to, sometimes we want to jump over the fact that we're really having this experience to kind of use these energy healings to kind of like shove through and get it done. I think I talked about it with Linda too. It's like, really feel like you're in a space where you can receive this kind of healing too, because it can be used as a bypass if we're not careful. It's like, oh, I'm going to bury that, like, I don't want to think about that. Anyway, clear my heart, clear my heart, clear my heart. And like, it's not like it's bad. It's not like it's not painful, but like that, that's why I love the inner child work. That inner child needs some attention, or those parts, they're needing some attention. So let them. Another one is somatic release. Often, trauma is stored in the bodies. And so maybe free flowing dance, some yoga, shaking or moving our body, to like release that energy is helpful. I know in heart center therapy, when I took my class, she had just added a new little section to the like script of working with someone. And it was like, okay, when you're in that feeling, when you're in that emotion, what does it make your body want to do? And it was wild how all of a sudden you would, most of the time, you would curl into a ball, or maybe you would be like, I want to go like this. And it was like you allowed the body to kind of do what it wants to do, and trust it, trust that the body needs to release that energy in that way. Because that's really important. The book, Waking the Tiger is really good on somatic understanding. It also talks about affirmations, create affirmations like I am safe in love. I am safe in love. I am safe in love. And you have it ready to go that you're not just saying it when you're having a hard time, but it's something that you work on every single day. I am safe in love. I attract relationships that nurture and support me. I trust others and they trust me. And again, we're just building that feeling of like, okay, that can be true. The first time you're like, that's a bunch of baloney. Like sometimes, you're like, that's a bunch of baloney. But pretty soon you're like, okay, that doesn't feel so foreign anymore because we've let it sink into our system.
Well, and we've done the reverse, right? We've told ourselves like we're fat, we're fat, we're fat over and over again. First, we
That
might
worked.
not have, we're saying it to be cool, but then we're like, oh yeah, that worked. We said it over and over to ourselves. So it can work both ways, but
Yeah.
like let's use it for the good.
Right. I love it. I love it. Okay, the next is Reiki or energy healing. So an energy healer can help you identify and clear blockages in the energy field and try, they said book a session with a practitioner or use self Reiki techniques to channel healing into your heart, solar plexus, and sacral chakra. And we also in the library, we have a self Reiki that you can follow along. You don't need to be a Reiki practitioner to do Reiki on yourself. And hopefully we have more coming, right? More and more coming.
Yeah. My friend's son, I probably said this to you before, but he got it done when he was a little kid and he said, oh, it felt so good, when she massaged me and she goes, he didn't touch you. He said, she massaged my soul. And I like thinking about Reiki as a soul massage,
Totally.
Just things loosened up and ready to go.
Right. It just makes you feel like, okay, I can do this. It just gives you this boost. But it's like not an energetic boost. It's more just like a calming boost. It's like just a confidence, a little like, okay, like a deep breath. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Really helpful. And then of course, journaling with intuition, maybe that's the thing. It's like, maybe that in that journaling, we need to find maybe that inner person, that inner child needs you to know something, maybe because like I say, we don't always know what it is, but if we journal and we practice that, those things will come up. Like
the Happy Childhood Fairy, she has a different way of journaling. It's
not
what you're keeping to pass on to your kids.
Right.
This is a very therapeutic way of getting out your feelings. And I think it does bring up stuff. I think it's a very cool form of journaling.
Yes. And to free write, and then, she does the meditation afterwards, but also just taking some time to to just to not hurry on to the next thing, but to say like, wow, that was really going on inside me, like, wow, okay. And just kind of letting there be a few minutes before you just transition to the next thing.
Sure.
And then the last thing it gave was a crystal grid or art altar work. And so it's like, it helps set energetic healing. So create a crystal grid with stones like rose quartz, amethyst, and black tourmaline, and which rose quartz is love, amethyst is calm, and black tourmaline is protection. And then, kind of do your meditations with that little grid, however it feels, supportive of you, to help you. And all of those are super woo-woo. And I'm telling you, they're great. Like ChatGPT, way to go. You got it right on.
That was awesome. Is there a crystal that absorbs negative energy? I thought black tourmaline might have.
I think it does. Whenever I think of black tourmaline, I think of, we did this podcast with Jenny Dopp. I don't know what number it was, but she has a special needs kid. And for years and years and years, of course he's on all kinds of medicine, but she's like, it was like a miracle when he held his first black tourmaline, and there was a difference, and it made a difference. And like, he doesn't know how to make that up. He can't fake that, right? Like, he doesn't have the ability to fake that. And I was just like, okay, like, thank you for sharing that, because and to this day, it's like, where's my rock, and they've got to have that on hand. And he's now into adulthood, but he's still, that's been the best, it doesn't take all of it away, but it's like, that's been the one thing that she could see a difference in, that he even said, this is a difference, sometimes. So yeah, do use crystal work. Crystal work is, like we say, it's the mineral kingdom. It's the mineral kingdom of the earth. And we need different minerals for different reasons physically. And these we're just using the same kind idea of minerals working emotionally. They support us emotionally. So go get your crystal. You can get them at any Target nowadays. You can get them at Walmart. Like it's been
Really?
time has come a long ways. Oh yeah, you can go get a necklace that's like says like pink, what is it? Like rose quartz, and this is for calming and all this stuff. Yeah, go to your Walmart and you'll find a necklace with crystals on it that tells you what it does. Like it's not woo hardly anymore.
Rude.
Right. I know we thought we were so cool and now we're just regular people.
Bring it on. Let's do it. I want
Right.
it.
Right. So we always tease, we're like bringing woo woo to one woo, but I think we might be even moving to like just wow. Wow. That was great. So here we go. Read the book, The Attached. Like I loved you said on the social media, like it changed you. And I know it changed me too. It's like the world opens up. It's like the world makes sense in my life.
Well, and that there's a possible way to like to I wanted to, like a possible way to show up in a relationship and heal that relationship, and you don't have to change yourself.
Right.
Which that scared me, as I thought in order to be in a relationship I would have to change myself, and it was like, no, I don't have to change myself anymore, but I can ask for things, or I can offer things to my partner in order to make this work.
Yeah, it's more of understanding what you need and then getting those needs met, rather than a lot of times before you're like, oh, I shouldn't need that. It's like that's a lot of energy waste. I feel like I had a lot of energy in my life wasted on, well, I shouldn't need that. Like
right.
I shouldn't want that. Like it's fine. It's fine. It's not fine. It's obviously there, and it's quicker to just fulfill the need, and that's what it's so powerful. I mean, it's really a sacred place to be in relationship with someone and be able to have that, flow back and forth of support. Like it's available if, we can do it. And this book is one of the ways that we can work toward it.
When most people are asked what they want, they will answer, I want to be happy. But happy takes practice. And that's what the Wholeness Library is all about. So check it out free at thewholenessnetwork.com.